Hello everyone and welcome back to the final chicane with me, Kristen Boylan. I say Kristen Boylan, but obviously I am someone different today for Halloween. I told you I was going to dress up, and I hope everyone listening to this has also dressed up or will dress up for Halloween. You get two riddles of the week. One is who am I? It's not a riddle actually, you just have to guess who am I. I'll show you my full costume. You get a hint. Your hint is that I'm dressed as someone dressed as someone. Also, I will note that we are in a new room today. That is not by choice. It's just too loud upstairs to film today. There's a lot of coughing going on. There's a lot of noise. So I figured, I was filming outside. That's how much noise there was. And it actually started raining. So I had to come in here. I know it's a dark background, but it's also Halloween. So I feel like sort of the eerie vibes of Halloween are today. But you know what? We don't take ourselves too seriously here. And if you don't like it, you can leave. Let's start with Riddle of the Week, actual Riddle of the Week. From Guadalajara, my journey began, a karting prodigy racing since I ran. Now in red and black, I chase the crown. With victories and podiums, I won't back down. First Mexican to win after 50 long years. In F1's fast lane, I conquer my fears. Who am I with talent and drive? In the heart of racing, I thrive. So who is that? I think I got one of the lines wrong here. I wrote it down last night. Now in red and black, I chase the crown. Potentially not red and black. Maybe just ignore that line, actually. But yeah, I don't think it's too much of a hard one. Comment if you know who that is, and I'll tell you the answer and a bit about the person it's about later on in the video. Let's talk about the Mexican Grand Prix. I honestly think that was probably my favourite race of 2024 so far, which there has been some good ones, and I'll have to look back at my notes and remember, because maybe it's not. But I really enjoyed that race. There was a lot of drama. There was a lot of terrorizing, I guess, going on between quite a few people. We'll get into that later. Let's start with the media moments, though, from the Grand Prix this week. So obviously there's still a lot of chat going on about who will be in that second Red Bull seat, if Checo will stay for the rest of the season, everything like that. Liam did confirm he has no idea. He has no idea what the story was, anything. He's just here to drive the best that he can. He also confirmed his goals aren't just Red Bull. His goals are just to be in Formula 1. So I guess he was sort of hinting at he'd be open to sort of other suggestions or options from teams. Also, potentially could have been putting pressure on Red Bull by saying that, being like, oh, we need to give him a seat or someone else is going to snatch him up, basically. But I do believe that Red Bull have no idea, or don't have a complete idea anyway, of what they're going to be doing next year driver-wise. I think the one thing that I'm pretty sure about is that Checo won't be a Red Bull driver next year. And I know Checo is very confident that he will be, but even after Christian's comments after this race weekend, I'll talk a bit about what Christian said about him later. But yeah, I'm not too certain about Sergio's future in Formula 1 with Red Bull anyway. Obviously, there was a bit of controversy about the penalty. Actually, I say controversy, but then on the broadcast this weekend, they were saying controversy. Wait, controversy. Is that what they're saying? Is that an English thing? Do English people say controversy? Wait, I can't remember what the word is now, but something like that. Anyway, a bit of controversy between McLaren and Red Bull as usual last weekend, because we're just on media day right now. They wanted to appeal the penalty. They wanted it to be reviewed, but that was denied. It was not reviewed. Nothing changed. McLaren weren't happy about it. Even Red Bull were sort of just like, yeah, we just need to get the rules straight at this point. Like, there's just too much rule changing. But obviously Red Bull didn't see any sort of penalty necessary for them, obviously. It was also Fernando Alonso's 400th race this weekend. He had a cute little helmet. I didn't even know he had a helmet. Well, I guess I sort of assumed, but until I saw it, and it had like the pictures of, you know, his career moments and stuff. It was a very nice helmet. Not a very nice weekend for him, though, unfortunately. Honestly, I don't think I can take myself seriously in this wig. So over the last week, some rumours about Piastri being interested in going to Red Bull came out. It was Helmut Marko saying that people in Piastri's camp had been reaching out to Red Bull to discuss a possible contract. I would say that this isn't anything to do with actually Oscar. I'd say if anything, this was, Mark Webber trying to put pressure on McLaren to, I don't know, treat, Oscar better or to pay him more or whatever it is. By being like, yeah, maybe we will just switch teams. But Oscar did confirm not looking to switch anytime soon. He was saying like even after his contract ends, he'll probably just want to sign another one with McLaren. And yeah, so that was put to bed. I also noticed quite the shift in media over the last weekend. Particularly, I think there's a new Daniel Ricciardo on the grid in the form of Alex Albon. And I say that because Alex has been getting a lot of hate recently, and all of a sudden, he's never been a good driver, and he doesn't deserve the Williams seat, and he doesn't deserve to be in Formula 1 because he now has a teammate that's performing as well as him. And I guess the expectations for Franco were a bit lower since he's a rookie, as they should be. But now it's like degrading Alex and his performance, which I don't understand. Alex is an incredible driver. And I say like he's a new Daniel because I feel like, particularly just this year, because I know that Daniel was significantly underperforming in McLaren, but particularly like because of how well Yuki was performing, everyone thought Daniel was doing awful, and Daniel wasn't actually even having that bad of a season, in my opinion. It did start off rocky, don't get me wrong, but especially towards the middle and the end of his season, at least, a lot of hate for no reason. So I feel like we should just back off of that hate train on Alex. You don't always need someone to pick on, I promise. You can like Franco and not have to rip Alex to shreds to, support Franco. So maybe that's something that we could all work on. Let's go to the free practices. Messy free practices, very messy free practices, and they always are sort of in Mexico. Mexico is quite a complex track. We saw the Alex and Ollie crash in FP1, as incidents in practice usually are. It was just sort of an incident and there was no repercussions for either side, obviously, apart from the actual damage done to the cars. Ollie was just filling in for Charles in this session. Obviously, you have to give rookies, I think, 2 FP1 sessions, or 2 rookies in FP1 session, or do you have to give away 2? I don't know. Anyway, there's a rule. And yeah, Alex sort of just took too much curb going around the corner, and he sort of went in to Ollie. He did blame Ollie, but everyone sort of blames the other person during the crash. He did call Ollie an idiot, but that was just a heat of the moment thing. So I don't really reflect badly on Albon because of that. It wasn't hugely Albon's fault. It was also just a mix of, I wouldn't say it was Ollie's fault really at all, but just sort of wrong place, wrong time. But yeah, obviously that ended Ollie's session quite early, which definitely wasn't ideal for him. There was quite a few rookies actually doing their FP1 sessions this weekend. I don't know, Mexico feels like sort of a tough track for the rookies, like a good time of the season, because usually the main upgrades have already been figured out and brought in by now, so that practice time maybe isn't as important. Still very important though. Antonelli filling in Mercedes, Felipe Drugovich in Aston Martin, and Pato O'Ward in McLaren. He's also Mexican, so there's a reason for him to be there. Obviously, that's a home race for him. And FP1 sort of finished off with Max getting power issues just towards the end of it. He lost power completely, and that was something that they had to deal with then for FP2. Yuki also, definitely the star of the free practices, sort of went downhill for the rest of the weekend after the free practices. But he was just getting P3 left, right and centre. FP2, this was a 90-minute one because they were testing the Pirelli test for 2025, the tyres. And yeah, George did crash in that one. Quite a big crash actually, quite a lot of impact. And he did have to go to the medical centre, but he was completely okay. Thank God. There was a red flag for a long time though. A lot of repair to be done. Tsunoda again gets P3 in that one. I had really high hopes for Yuki at this point. FP3, not too much more to say on FP3, I guess. That was when we really saw that Perez was struggling that weekend, and again Magnussen's form was continuing. Yuki was also P3 at one point in FP3 as well for quite a bit. I think he misses Daniel. He just wants to be at that 3. Moving on to quali then. My predictions for quali were actually Oscar, Max, Lando, and then Yuki somewhere up there. Think I jinxed them all with those predictions. I feel bad. I don't know why I put Oscar there. I just had high hopes for him for this weekend. Yeah, qualifying did start off with a poor start from Perez, quite a bad lap time, and ultimately that potentially just screwed him over for the rest of the session. Alex and Franco were looking strong. They had set the fastest time on the softs, and I'm sure they were using new softs at this point, but still, the speed that Williams has, it has very good one-lap pace. And then Yuki, guess where Yuki's first lap put him? Go on, guess. P3. Yeah, put him P3. Gasly P2 as well. Don't know what Pierre has been eating recently, but he needs to continue with it because what has he been on recently? I know it hasn't completely translated to the race results, but his qualifying has been probably one of the best in the midfield. Obviously, the Haas's would be up there too. And then, yeah, things went from bad to worse for Piastri and Perez, the P's. Piastri got track limits. He had a messy lap. Obviously, his lap time wouldn't have been fast enough to get him through anyway, but he did have track limits. So, yeah, he lost a lot of time because of the track limits anyway. So that's why he wouldn't have got through. So he then had no time to do a build-up for another lap. He had to go straight into the other lap, and it was not fast enough. And Perez, in the same boat, not fast enough of a lap, and he was out in Q1 along with Piastri. Magnussen actually pushed Piastri out of Q2. So we were all like, yeah, Magnussen now with no penalty points is going to be a terror. And actually, no, he's just a lion now. He's just there to show everyone what he can actually do, and I respect it a lot. Q2, Pierre strong again. I don't feel like there should be a driver of the day for qualifying, but if there was, I would give it to Pierre. Both of the Haas's get out of Q2, very strong performance. Both the Haas's got lucky actually with their timing. They had just passed the line and set their times, and it just went up a couple of places. It probably would have been enough if the others had got to set time, but then Yuki's good weekend came to an end and he crashed, and ultimately his crash actually stopped Lawson from completing his lap, so Lawson was also out and he started behind Yuki. Obviously Yuki was out as well. Tsunoda, Lawson, Alonso, Stroll and Bottas all out. Not a bad run from Bottas though, because Joe was out first, so shame. I would have liked to see if Bottas could have improved. I don't know if he was even on his fast lap at that point. But yeah, Yuki just entered the corner too fast and lost control. The car sort of swung out of him. Quite an easy mistake, but not really a mistake that you'd be wanting to make at Yuki's place right now, and especially in the most important races where he needs to really prove himself if he wants to get that Red Bull seat. Q3, again, another lap time deleted, but it was Max's this time. His time and Sainz went on to provisional pole, which wouldn't just be provisional, as we saw by the end of Q3. It was quite entertaining actually, because Carlos and Charles, I think Charles was a bit ahead of Carlos on the track, so they were both stealing the purple sectors. Charles would set it and then Carlos would steal it, and it would just continue like that. They both improved. Charles didn't improve any positions though, and Carlos improved quite well on his time. He got a 1:15.946. Norris and Leclerc, just 5 100s, I think, between them, and 6 100s between Gasly and Magnussen then. So very, very impressive. Magnussen out-qualified Hulk again, and a very, very impressive run from Sainz, and he absolutely deserved how the rest of the weekend went for him with that race. Another thing that I think people are being dramatic about this weekend is Oscar Piastri. He hasn't had the best run recently. He hasn't done too well in qualifying. I know particularly Lando fans are probably quite anxious because they sort of need Oscar up there to steal the points. But then again, I sort of feel like with Perez underperforming, it's not that big of a deal. Lando already has that sort of luck on his side, and I just know people are already getting prepared if Lando doesn't win the championship to blame that on Oscar. But yeah, I don't really think that's completely fair, because Oscar still had a good chance of the championship when he was fighting and there was no team orders in McLaren, and he has been helping Lando a lot since, but it's not like he's been bad on purpose. He wants to keep his place as well in the Drivers' Championship, so everyone just needs to calm down a little. The top 11 all started on mediums. Yuki, medium, Lawson, hard. The bottom 5, I think, mostly run hard, so a bit of a different tyre strategy there. Didn't really matter, I found, if you started on mediums or hards, because many people just made their tyres last very differently. It really just depended on who you're fighting, or if you'd clean air, whatever sort of position that you were in. Obviously, there was that early red flag, so that helped, I guess, some of the people on mediums anyway. Este started from the pit lane. He got a new battery, and his race was quite quiet throughout it. Then, yeah, first lap, Yuki was out again. It's happened before at Mexico. Quite an unfortunate crash. I think it was right to not have been blamed on anyone. Definitely a first corner, first lap sort of instant, as we usually see. But unfortunately, it did end Alex and Yuki's race. It was more Yuki had actually a really good start and he had went down the inside. Alex had eventually ended up pushing into him, but then once you saw the replay, Alex was also being squeezed by the Alpine, and the Alpine had nowhere to go either. So again, wrong place, wrong time sort of instant. And yeah, definitely not what V-Carb needed in their fight against Haas, because Haas have been the better team for sure so far. And the last thing they need is for a DNF. Perez did have a good start though. We'll discuss that in a minute. He did make his way up to P13. Obviously, that's the 2 cars ahead of him being taken out, Yuki and Albon. But he did do well to keep out of that sort of mess. But he did have a false start, so he didn't stop on his marks in the box, and he didn't even notice that he didn't stop on them. It's quite similar to what we've seen of Bianca Bustamante in F1 Academy. She started quite a bit outside of her box, but she had realised that she started outside of her box, and I think, if I remember right, she stopped. She got them to stop the race, so she would be put back into her position, and then she got the 5-second penalty anyway later. I feel like I probably wouldn't do it that way. I probably did the Perez way and be like, no, I didn't know, and take the 5-second penalty after you've already gained a bit by being ahead of your box. That might be some sort of rule they're gonna have to make sure. But yeah, Perez really had no idea that he had done that at the start, and he was just saying, no, I actually had a good start, when he was told that he had that penalty, just 5 seconds. So I mean, it was all right, but his race, I don't think his race wasn't really going anywhere anyway, because of where he started and the sort of mess that I'll come to. Safety car did end around lap 6, and Sainz made that incredible overtake. I think it was lap 9 then, shortly after the safety car. He just went for it. One of my favourite overtakes that Sainz has ever done. Definitely my favourite of the race, I think. Obviously not an incredibly late dive, but it was just a nice overtake. Satisfying to watch. Well done, Carlos. And then Lando obviously saw Carlos got past and was like, yeah, give me a bit of that. I want to take Max's position now. And Max, I don't know what it is with Max and Lando, but Max actually just would rather. But every time Max sees the McLaren, he's like, yeah, I'm going to push this off the track. I respect it, but I get why McLaren are annoyed about it. It's just a little funny. Max is just a little terror. So yeah, Max definitely did push Lando off, a very messy thing, and Charles managed to sneak by then and steal P2. His watch, and he was probably like, yeah, Lando's coming up to Max, something's going to happen now, and I don't blame him. And then re-entering the track, and there was another pushed off, and it was just a mess. And Max did end up getting a 10-second penalty for the first one, and then another 10-second penalty for the second little instant between them. So 20 seconds in total. To be fair, he kept his cool a lot more than I thought he would about it. I don't know, he's learned to gather himself, I guess, a bit more this year. Not that he needs to. I think drivers should be allowed to express themselves in whatever way they want to. Perez was then quite quick on his tyres. He quickly got both of the Aston Martins, quite clean overtakes. George had a very good overtake on Hamilton in lap 15. And then, unfortunately, Alonso, on his 400 race, retired the car. I actually don't know what happened there. I think it was just some sort of malfunction with the car, because he didn't get involved in anything. I'll look into that on why Alonso retired. Perez versus Lawson. Lawson was sort of the highlight of my race. I don't know why he decided that he actually hates all the other drivers. I'm joking. But he was quite entertaining because every time I was like, yeah, something's going to happen here. And something always happened. They did make a little bit of contact. They both got a small bit of damage. Then I think Lawson was probably a little lucky to not get a penalty because the first move was fine. Then he sort of did look like he pushed Perez off a little, but just like a minor sort of thing. I think it would have been like a iffy penalty. But yeah, it's not like I disagreed that he didn't get a penalty. And yeah, Checo definitely was not happy with Lawson from that moment, and Lawson not happy with Checo. And then Stroll used that little messy sort of bit to then attack Perez. And it was quite a good little fight there as well. But ultimately, Perez just ended up pitting. He had the damage. He had the 5-second penalty, so a slow pit stop. He pitted around lap 21, got him away from Lawson. And at this point, Piastri was still moving up the field. So he had a very slow start, Piastri. He didn't make up any positions at the start. Even though he was on mediums, he was on the faster tyres. And very strangely for the mediums, he actually was driving better on them the longer that he went, compared to the hards, which obviously last longer. I feel like Mexico was just such a race that it just didn't matter what car you're in. Every driver is just going to fight you. Because usually it's like, oh no, this isn't my race. But no, they didn't feel that in Mexico. Everyone was the race in Mexico because Piastri versus Colapinto, loved that. First like proper battle I've really seen of Colapinto, especially against the fastest car on the grid right now, the McLaren. So I was quite impressive with that. Max boxed lap 27, he put on the hards. He had the 24-second pit stop because obviously he had that 20-second penalty. And then once you set a penalty, the rest of your pit stop is a bit slower. So his other pit stop ended up actually being 4 seconds anyway. Everyone was sort of pitting around lap 29 as well. Piastri went very long on his tyres. He was still on the mediums, lap 39. So he went a long way past the people who were on the hards. Very good with his tyre management there. But he did end up boxing on lap 40 anyway. Perez was struggling. He was like P16, P17 at this point. And from here, his race was sort of over. He wasn't really making any moves. He did have that damage, obviously, which is important to note. But after Piastri boxed, he was rapid on those hards and he was making his way up through the field. He did slow down towards the end. He couldn't quite get to where he needed to be by the end of the race, but he did make up some good positions. Gasly actually also had quite a good move on Bottas sort of during this time period. Perez had to box again. He boxed lap 45. Colapinto boxed around lap 49. And was this Colapinto's second pit stop? No, this was his first pit stop. How does a rookie know how to manage their tyres that well? That was extremely impressive from Colapinto. And by this stage, actually, the top of the grid were actually lapping everyone. I think Sainz to Norris were lapping like the top or all the way to everyone behind P12. And I feel like we haven't had that much lapping this season as usual, or like to everyone 13 down. I guess there were quite a few DNS actually, so that's probably it. And then things were getting tense between the Ferrari boys. I think things were also, I feel like I always spend the least amount of time on my podcast talking about the people who actually won, because usually it's like sort of a clean race, but it was a bit difficult. It wasn't the easiest win for Carlos, which I think always makes it a bit more impressive, but he was sort of panicking a lot that Charles was getting too close to him, and I don't think any team orders were given there. I'm not sure, I could be wrong saying that, but I don't think Charles was too happy with that. Like, he might have been told to just back off a little bit, but ultimately Lando was caging in on the two of them, and Peralta just had to make sure that every lap and every turn was perfect, and he got the best exit out of all of it. He just pushed too hard and won and ended up going off. Lando goes straight through to take P2. Then Colapinto decided that he wants to fight some more. So he actually overtook Lawson on lap 66. Another overtake on lap 66 was Hamilton on Russell. A very clean overtake as well. Nice to see. And then there was damage to Lawson's car. But yeah, with the Lawson Colapinto, there did end up being damage to Lawson's car. Colapinto wasn't too happy with him. And then also Colapinto had his radio. They were getting lapped by the McLaren, and Lawson had just held up Lando a little bit, and I don't think it was intentional because you could see that he was trying to find a good place to let Norris pass without being vulnerable to being overtaken. But yeah, Franco did call that out, that Lawson was being a little late to let Norris by. Then the fastest lap drama. Not really drama, just like something fun for the end of the race. This is why they can't take fastest lap out. It's just a fun thing. Like, there's no harm in it, getting a point for fastest lap. But Charles had a big enough gap from P4, I think Hamilton, so he could box, and he did, and he got fastest lap. But also Perez was told to box for fastest lap. Perez boxed for fastest lap. He had damaged his car. The lap wasn't fast enough. He didn't get fastest lap. He didn't get fastest sector or anything like that. So Ferrari did get that extra point, and Ferrari overtook Red Bull in the constructors, which we've seen coming for a long time. And I'm sort of happy to see Ferrari just doing as well as they are recently. I feel like it's nice. I like to see Ferrari doing well. So yeah, win for Carlos, Lando P2, Charles P3 with fastest lap, obviously Hamilton P4, and Russell P5. Carlos was just insane, because that was a really good race. There was, like, I know a lot of people were pointing out that after the race, when Carlos had turned around to pat Charles sort of walked straight through him. I'd say Charles was just a little frustrated at his own race, and they seemed fine in, like, the press and everything afterwards. So I'd say that's just people looking a bit too much into it. Then some more drama. Lawson actually ended up giving Perez the finger when he was overtaking Perez. Lawson just came in and said to the other drivers, this is about me now. Because he got a lecture from Fernando Alonso last week, and he got a lecture from Perez this week. I don't think it's the biggest thing in the world, you know, flipping someone off. But I feel like it was just a little odd to do, especially at his home race in front of his home crowd. I would have been sprinting from that stadium, because the Mexican fans, they're very passionate as well. Like, the Grand Prix has been cancelled before, obviously long time ago, because they just couldn't control the crowd. So quite a risky move from Lawson to do that. I don't think it was really necessary. Just a little rude, I think, especially because they're part of the same family. They're sister teams, you know. And I feel like bad blood being between Perez and the driver who's trying to take a seat is just going to make things so much tougher for Perez, and even for Lawson too, I guess. But yeah, a very unsuccessful weekend for Red Bull. Perez did go up to Lawson after the race and they had a chat. Obviously, I don't know what they said, but I did see George standing in one of the Haas watching them, which was quite funny. And then in Perez's post-race interviews, I'll see if I have any of the quotes actually. So when Perez was asked about his relationship with Lawson, he said, "I don't have any relationship with him. I think the way he has come to Formula 1, I don't think he has the right attitude for it. He needs to be a bit more humble. When a two-time world champion was saying things last weekend, he completely ignored him. It's like when you come to Formula 1, you're obviously very hungry and so on, but you have to be respectful as well off and on the track. I don't think he's shown the right attitude. I think he's a great driver and I hope for him that he can step back and learn from it. In his first two Grand Prix, he has had many incidents. I think there will be a point where it can cost him too much, like it did this weekend. I just think that he has to have the right attitude to say, look, probably I'm overdoing it a little bit. I'll step back and start again, because if you don't learn from your mistakes, Formula 1 is a brutal world and he might not continue." And then Perez was asked if he feels like Lawson is doing that because he's trying to get Perez's seat, like he's racing Perez extra hard. He said, well, he nearly crashed with Fernando last weekend. He nearly crashed with Franco. I think he's just racing everyone out of control at the moment. I think I sort of do agree with the fact that Lawson is just being a bit too... I think he just needs to be a bit more calmer with his moves. It's not like he's out of control on the radio or anything like that. I think his moves sometimes are just a little desperate. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a bit of, clean overtakes are nice, but you like the odd messy one as well. But I think when everything you're doing is messy, that's a bit of a problem. But he is fast and he is a good driver, undoubtedly. There's definitely some bad blood between them. Now, especially Perez saying that, I think the way he came into Formula 1, obviously replacing Daniel, he needs to be more humble. Maybe Perez is a little annoyed that Daniel got replaced as well. But things got a little bad for Perez in the media after, with Horner being asked if he would keep Perez for the rest of the season. And he said, as a team, we are working hard to support him. We have done everything we can and will do the same next week. But there comes a point when we can't do any more. That is the moment when difficult decisions have to be made. Yeah, he made it clear that they're third in the team standings. That's not where they want to be. and they have to get back on the right track, which is going to be difficult in the last 4 races at the point that they are now. You know, it's winter because the sun is getting so low that it's ruining my lighting. So yeah, that is a little worrying for Perez. And I think with the fact that Christian is potentially considering him not even continuing the rest of the season, that is where my doubts that, or my opinion that he won't be on the grid next year come from. Perez has had a tough run this year. Mentally, it's probably been quite a lot though. So I do feel for Perez, and I don't know, I feel like he just needs to step away from the sport, definitely at the end of this year, even for a bit. You know, he's a good driver. Some other team would want him if he leaves Red Bull, but I feel like sort of what Daniel did when he left McLaren, just taking that time off to reassess your passion and your love for it is quite important as well. The drivers need to protect their mental health. It's a tough sport, and that's something I'll always stand by. Doesn't matter how rich or famous you are. It's important you put you first and you look after yourself. Do you want your riddle of the week? Well, actually quite on topic with what I've talked about basically all episode. The answer of the riddle of the week was Sergio Perez. So Sergio Perez or Checo. I also find it funny how a lot of people when they're joining Formula 1 think Sergio and Checo are different people, because he's referred to Checo so often and so normally. So Checo, he's born in 1990 in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. And he began his journey into racing at the age of 6. He hopped into a go-kart for the first time, which started the little journey to becoming one, if not the most successful Mexican driver in Formula 1 history. He finished second in his first karting season as well, so early success. Obviously that attracted the attention of scouts, and yeah, he quickly moved up the ranks and won the British Formula 3 Championship in 2007, dominated that championship actually. There was actually one moment that he got so excited after he won that he didn't slow down once he crossed the line and crashed into the tyre barrier. Obviously he was okay. And he said, yeah, he learned to control his excitement after that. In 2011, Checo made his Formula 1 debut with Sauber, becoming the first Mexican driver to race in F1 since Hector Ribaque in 1981. And his first podium finish came in 2012 at the Malaysian Grand Prix, where he finished second. His journey obviously was not without challenges. He had a little stint at McLaren, didn't go too well. He found himself at Force India and Racing Point after that. But it was sort of here that his talent sort of came to light in Formula 1 properly. He had the 2020 Sakir Grand Prix, was his first ever Formula 1 victory and the first Grand Prix victory for a Mexican driver in 50 years. And he celebrated by diving into the pool at his hotel, fully dressed in his team gear. In 2021, Checo joined Red Bull, pairing up with Max Verstappen. It was a very friendly rivalry, and he even said that his position on the team is just to make Max look good. He was given the Minister of Defence title because of his defence for Max during the season, particularly in Abu Dhabi when he was holding back Lewis Hamilton. One of his most impressive moments by far. 2023, Checo secured his best place in the Drivers' Championship, finishing second to Max. Unfortunately, things have took sort of journey since then. 2024 has obviously been a struggle for him. He's got with confidence. You can tell that he's trying. He's doing everything that he can as well. And yeah, I guess the thing that he really wants now is to have a good rest of the season and see if there's anything that he can do in these last few races to prove that he's worthy to keep his contract, which he does have a contract for next year, and to race alongside Max. That is Sergio Perez. Now, should I do my riddle? Do you want to know who I am? Let me show you. I am Tom Holland's lip sync battle performance. Let me show you a picture. Can you see that? That's who I'm dressed up as. He was dressed up as Rihanna there. I don't have a long umbrella, but I feel like I did a good enough job with this costume. I mean, it's quite easy to do, to be fair. But if you haven't watched his lip sync performance, it's actually sort of iconic. And I've always loved Tom Holland. He's my favourite actor. But I don't really have a favourite actor. I'm not the biggest movie person in the world. I like a movie, you know, but I'm just not. My brother would be obsessed with movies. Like, he has things down there. He has like movie posters in his room and everything. Anyway, gone off topic already. Respect a bit of Tom Holland. Last of 3 races, Brazil is this weekend. Guess who's going to be at Brazil apparently? Seb. Very excited for that. He was spotted in the airport after they said that there would be like a special guest doing. So yeah, I really want to see Seb. I miss him. But yeah, until then, I will see you next week to talk about the Brazil Grand Prix. Goodbye.